It seems like everywhere you turn these days, it's digital interfaces, apps, just a never-ending stream of information online.
It really is.
And making sure all of those experiences are not just functional, but enjoyable too. That's a whole other challenge.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where UX comes in, right? User experience.
Exactly. So we're diving into that today, user experience,
All right.
with the help of an expert, of course. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It's interesting because it seems like the need for good design that puts users first, that's been around forever.
Yeah, it has. If you look back, some of the early research focused on geriatrics and psychology,
Right.
just recognizing that as people age, their needs change and technology needs to adapt right along with them.
Makes sense. So let's zoom out a little bit and talk about UX as a field.
hmm
What kind of a timeline are we looking at here?
Well, research in human-computer interaction, UX and action feedback, it really picked up after 1999.
Oh, wow. So that recent.
Yeah, but even with all this research, there are still some areas we need to catch up.
Yeah.
Like, for example, there's not much research on mobile reading interfaces designed specifically for older adults.
Huh. I wouldn't have thought of that. So we've got UX affecting websites and apps. What else?
So UX is everywhere. It can be applied to any product or service. You can think of websites, mobile apps, sure, but it goes way beyond that.
Like what?
We see UX playing a crucial role in everything from ebook readers to social media platforms, educational apps, online shopping, you name it.
So what about like real world stuff?
Mhm.
Could UX principles apply to something like going to the bank or even just like a store?
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. The layout of a store, how easy it is to find what you're looking for. Clear signage, helpful staff, a smooth checkout process.
Right.
All of these things contribute to the overall user experience.
It's all connected.
It is. And companies that get it right, they see the benefits. Customers are more likely to come back and tell their friends.
Word of mouth is everything.
It is.
So it sounds like UX is way more than just making things look pretty. It's about the entire experience.
Yeah, from start to finish.
So if we were to break down UX into some major categories, where would we even begin?
Well, there are lots of ways to categorize UX, but two major areas that come to mind are usability interface design and ease of understanding interface design.
Okay, so break those down for me. What's the difference?
Sure, so usability interface design focuses on making interfaces easy to use. We're talking font styles navigation, how you turn pages in a digital book, even features like text-to-speech.
Okay.
For example, research shows that older adults often prefer larger adjustable font sizes, simple navigation with easy-to-understand icons, and page-turning methods that mimic real-world actions.
Interesting. So ease of understanding interface design. What's that all about?
Well, this category focuses on how easy it is to comprehend the information presented.
Got it.
Think about things like infographics, clear categories, and item descriptions. Research shows that people in general, and older adults in particular, they really appreciate infographics that have text explanations alongside them, familiar categories that are easy to navigate, and item information with clear, detailed descriptions.
So it's not just about throwing information at people. It's about presenting it in a way that actually makes sense.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the basics, but what about the really cutting-edge stuff? What are some of the tools and methods being used today to really push UX forward?
One model that's really helpful is the Kano model.
The Kano model.
Yeah, it's a way to analyze user needs by categorizing features into 5 different categories. Must be one-dimensional, attractive, indifferent, and reverse.
Okay, whoa, that's a lot. Let's break that down. What does each one mean?
All right, so must-be features are the bare minimum. If they're missing, users are going to be unhappy. For example, in a mobile reading app, the ability to actually read the text, that's a must-be feature.
Right.
It's expected, but just having it doesn't necessarily lead to high satisfaction.
Makes sense. So what about one-dimensional features?
One-dimensional features have a direct impact on satisfaction. The more you have, the happier users are. So using that same example of a reading app, the ability to adjust the font size, that's a one-dimensional feature. The more options you have for adjusting the font size, the better the experience for a wider range of users.
Okay, that makes sense. What about attractive features?
Attractive features are those delightful surprises that go above and beyond expectations.
Well,
Boosting that satisfaction, their absence isn't a deal breaker, but they can really make a product stand out.
Gotcha. So for the reading app example.
Imagine that app offering a built-in dictionary that provides definitions for words with a single tap. That would be an attractive feature.
Oh, that's cool.
Right.
All right. So what about features that don't really matter one way or another?
Those are the indifferent features. They don't really have any impact on user satisfaction.
Okay. And lastly, reverse features.
Reverse features can actually lead to dissatisfaction if they are present.
Really?
Yeah, these are often features that are overly complicated, intrusive, or simply unnecessary.
So it sounds like the Kano model is all about prioritizing features and figuring out which ones are going to have the biggest impact.
Exactly.
Are there any real-world examples of how this model has been used to improve a product or service?
Oh, tons. One study used the Kano model to understand older adults' preferences for mobile reading apps, and it revealed that things like font style lists and adjustable line spacing were one-dimensional features,
Interest.
meaning they directly impact satisfaction. But interestingly, navigation page turning, even text-to-speech, were seen as attractive features.
Yeah.
Nice to have, but not essential for satisfaction.
So even within something like a reading app, there's this whole hierarchy of needs.
There is.
And the Kano model helps us understand that.
Exactly.
So we've talked about the Kano model and some of the more traditional elements of UX, but what about all the new stuff coming out?
Hmm.
How are things like voice interfaces, augmented reality, and machine learning changing the UX game?
Well, those technologies, they have huge potential. For example, imagine an AR app that lets students visualize scientific concepts in 3D, or a platform that uses machine learning to connect students with the perfect mentor based on their learning style.
That would be incredible.
It would.
But with all this innovation, are there any challenges or limitations that we need to be aware of?
Definitely. One of the biggest challenges with AR, for example, is the technical side.
Okay.
Users often report issues with functionality features and even the content itself.
Right.
So there's definitely still some kinks to work out. And then you have the concerns around privacy and data usage, especially with technologies like machine learning.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is. As these technologies become more sophisticated developers, they need to be transparent about app permissions and how they use data, too. Users need to understand how their information is being used and feel confident that their privacy is protected.
Absolutely. So it sounds like careful and thoughtful implementation is key when it comes to these new technologies.
It is.
I'm curious, though, are there examples of how UX principles are being applied in more traditional settings?
Of course. Take, for example, an e-commerce brand that was struggling with high cart abandonment rates.
That's a classic problem.
It is. Well, through user research, they realized that their checkout process was just way too complicated and frustrating.
Uh-huh.
So they simplified it, made it more intuitive, and boom, cart abandonment rates plummeted, sales went up.
That's a perfect example of how good UX can actually have a real impact on a company's bottom line.
Can?
What about examples outside of just business? What about using UX to make a positive difference in the world?
Well, there's a really interesting case study of a web-based learning app called IDN that was developed in Indonesia.
Okay.
They use the design thinking method, which is closely related to UX principles, to try and address the shortage of qualified teachers, especially in rural areas.
How'd that work?
They created a platform that connects students with online mentors.
Smart.
The app is designed to be intuitive and engaging for both the students and the mentors, and it's been really successful in bridging the educational gap.
That's amazing.
Eh.
So UX is not just about sleek websites and apps. It can actually be used to tackle some really big challenges.
Exactly. And as technology continues to evolve, UX is only going to become more important.
Well, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's pause here for a moment.
We've covered a lot, but it feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
I know, right?
Yeah,
It really makes you think about how we design technology and the impact it has on us.
it does.
I mean, with AI and personalization getting more and more sophisticated, are there ethical things to think about when designing for specific groups of people?
That's a huge question. Designers and developers have a responsibility to make sure that technology empowers all users, not just a select few. We need to consider accessibility, cultural differences, varying needs to create truly inclusive experiences.
It's a lot to consider, but it's also a huge opportunity to really make a difference.
Absolutely. Approaching design with empathy and a willingness to listen to the needs of all users, that's key.
Yeah, I'm already starting to think about how these UX principles could improve my own life.
That's the great thing about UX. It's not just theoretical. It has a real impact on how we live.
Right.
The more we understand about UX, the better equipped we'll be to advocate for designs that are truly user-centered.
So what's next for UX? Where do you see the field heading?
As technology continues to evolve, UX will become even more important. We're already seeing a shift towards these immersive experiences with virtual and augmented reality playing bigger roles.
VR and AR, that's going to change UX. What will that even look like?
It'll be interesting to see how designers adapt. I mean, how do you design an interface for a virtual world?
Right.
How do you make sure users feel comfortable and safe in an augmented environment?
Wow.
These are just some of the challenges that we're going to need to address.
Sounds like UX designers are going to have to think in entirely new ways.
They will. But it's also really exciting.
Mhm.
I think we're right on the edge of a new era of UX, one that's driven by human connection and empathy.
I love that idea. So it's not just about the tech itself, it's about the people using it.
Exactly. And as we embrace this human-centered approach,
Mm.
I think we're going to see UX principles applied in even more unexpected and innovative ways.
Like what?
Imagine UX being used to design better healthcare systems, more sustainable cities, more engaging educational experiences.
Wow. The
They
possibilities.
are endless, and that's what makes this field so captivating.
Right.
It's always evolving. There's always something new to learn and explore.
Well, I've definitely learned a lot today.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I have one final question. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for growth in UX in the coming years?
I think one area with huge potential is accessibility.
Okay.
As technology becomes more and more widespread, it's crucial that we design experiences that are inclusive of all users, regardless of their abilities.
Absolutely.
We need to move beyond just meeting the minimum accessibility standards and strive to create designs that are truly delightful and empowering for everyone.
I like that. What else?
Another exciting area is the intersection of UX and AI. As AI gets more sophisticated, it has the potential to personalize experiences in ways that we can't even imagine yet.
It's true.
But it's crucial that we use AI responsibly and ethically, making sure that these personalized experiences actually benefit users and don't inadvertently create biases or exclude certain groups.
So using AI to enhance the human experience, not replace it.
Exactly. The best UX designers will be the ones who can strike that balance, leveraging AI's power while maintaining a deep understanding of human needs and emotions.
It sounds like the future of UX is incredibly bright. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. It's been a really fascinating look into the world of UX.
It has. I've really enjoyed exploring these ideas with you.
I know, me too. I'm feeling inspired to start applying some of what we've talked about today.
Even small changes can have a big impact.
That's true.
Whether you're designing a website, an app, even just an email,
Right.
a user-centered approach can really elevate the experience.
Thinking about that user journey, making those interactions smooth, enjoyable, rewarding.
Exactly. And, as you become more aware of UX principles, you start to notice them everywhere,
Yeah.
the good and the bad. You start to appreciate the thought and effort that goes into creating those really exceptional experiences.
Yeah, I'm already starting to look at the world through that UX lens, noticing things I never really paid attention to before.
That's the beauty of it. It's all around us, shaping our daily lives in so many ways. And as technology keeps advancing, UX is only going to become more crucial.
So before we wrap things up, what's the
Yeah.
one key takeaway you hope our listeners will remember from our conversation?
User experience matters.
It does.
It matters for businesses, for individuals, for society as a whole.
Right.
By embracing that user-centered approach, we can create technology that is not only functional, but also delightful, inclusive, and empowering.
Beautifully said. As we navigate this ever-changing technological landscape,
Mhm.
it's so important to remember that at the heart of it all is the human experience.
And I couldn't agree more.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a new and exciting topic.